proudly announced, "She doesn't have any toenails." Cece now had the interest of the other girls at the table. My heart pounded, and my mind started to slow down. This couldn't be happening. People don't just say things like that. I felt tears threaten behind my eyes, and my temple seemed to press deep into my head. My hands shook, and my lip quivered in a way I hoped they wouldn't notice. But I had to be strong. I had to brush it off, and I had to look poised, unaffected, invincible, untouchable. "No, I'm okay. I'll leave my shoes on," I wanted to say firmly. But it didn't come out very firm sounding. I could barely form the words. I couldn't even look Cece in the face. I tried to get my legs to move away, to walk back toward my table and rewind and drive down this hill and not get out of bed this morning. "Take off your shoe," she repeated. And for a third time, I said, "No, I'll leave it on." While the words came out clearly, I could barely hear my own commanding voice. I laughed nervously. They didn't think it was funny. It wasn't funny. None of it was. "Fine," Cece barked. "I'll do it." She dropped to her knees and began clawing at my shoe, trying to force it off. I pressed my left foot as hard as I could into the ground so she couldn't remove it. My heart was beating dangerously fast, and all I could hear were my loud and rushed inhales. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to be the freshman who freaked out in the middle of the quad. I had to spend the next 4 years here. I was so stupid. Why'd I come over here? Why hadn't I just stayed at my table? I stood there and stood there and stood there, my eyes darting around to see if any upperclassmen were looking over. I stood there, trying to look nonchalant. I stood there, biting the inside of my cheek and clenching my teeth and focusing on the ground so I could try and ignore what was happening. I stood there, not able to ignore what was happening. "No," I said again. But my voice remained so much more powerful in my head than it was out loud. I felt my face burn as I looked at the other girls at the table, who were, again, barely paying attention. Why was Cece still trying to take my shoe off? I lost track of how much time I'd been there. As I was becoming tired of it all, almost bored of it, I felt her finger start to slide under the bottom of my shoe, and I stepped down hard. She looked up at me angrily, and then went back to my shoe. She untied it completely. It was going to take so long to rethread the laces. "No! Don't!" I pleaded. I sounded whiny. Ugh. I was struggling to simultaneously keep Cece from ripping off the shoe that covered what I wanted hidden and still act all cool and composed so the group of girls watching wouldn't think I was weird. It was exhausting. The big feelings of confusion and betrayal and guilt I had earlier had subsided and just left me feeling tired, heavy, empty. As Cece continued to clutch at my shoes, I started to lose balance and grabbed for the table to steady myself. It was almost funny how terribly awkward this situation was. Almost. I looked back toward all the girls as they silently watched me. This was getting old, and my foot was starting to hurt from putting so much weight on it. My left thigh was cramping and starting to shake. My brain couldn't formulate words, thoughts. I was watching everything happen to me and consciously knew what was being done to me wasn't right, but I felt completely removed from the situation. Allie, a tall, thin girl whose long, bleached blonde hair was pulled back in a French braid, broke form and walked around from the opposite side of the blue metal table to stand next to me. "Fine, I'll help," she sighed. This all felt very dramatic to me, but the girl seemed almost annoyed this was still going on. I didn't even have time to process what she said. Allie grabbed me from behind and wrapped her thin arms around my trunk. She was lean, but strong, squatting down and straightening back.